BigCountryPreps.com. I'm Evan Wren, and this is the Countdown to Two-A-Days series, our daily look at an area football team and the key questions we'll be answering about that team in our August 20th preseason preview here at BigCountryPreps.com. I'm with my partner, Dan Youngblood, via Zoom, and tonight, Dan, we're talking about the Coleman Bluecats.
A Blue Cats team that in an off season, we just talked about this before we started, an off season where there were so many coaching changes. John Elder he is a constant in the big country. He has been at Coleman now 12 years, done an awesome job. One of my favorite coaches in our area. I love dealing with him. I love watching his teams play. And this year should be another quality Coleman team. Last year the record can be deceiving. They went 4-8, had some injury issues, played a brutal non-district schedule, struggled through it a little bit, but they ended up going 3-2 in a tough district, won a playoff game, had another successful season at Coleman, and they've got a 12 of their 22 lettermen back from that team, including 6 offensive and 5 defensive starters. So certainly some questions to answer this year if they hope to achieve their goals, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. But this Coleman program is a tough one and has been under Elder for years, and I would expect it to be again in 2025.
All right, before we start talking about the Blue Cats, we want to remind you folks to please hit the subscribe button on YouTube. It's free. And then also hit that little bell, and you'll get notifications on YouTube every time that we come up with a new video here at Big Country Preps. And with that, Dan, the Coleman Blue Cats, some of the key questions. Go ahead and fire away.
Yeah, I think we're going to start in a place that's a little different than we have with some of the others. Is this is a team that had an interesting year last year in that they lost an experienced quarterback in Braden Torres. He was a junior at the time, now a senior. Was kind of the guy in their offense. Goes and hurts himself about midway through the season. There maybe a little after, and gets replaced by a youngster in Hunter Eddington. He was a sophomore at the time, now a junior, and he had a really nice finish to the season. So my question is, you've got two capable quarterbacks. I'm interested to see how that situation is going to play out. Is there a chance we see both of them play? Will one find another position? How will that work out when you have two quarterbacks like that? Two kids who have played a fair amount of football, had a fair amount of success. Both have proven they can run that offense. So that's my first question is what's that quarterback position going to look like with two kids who both can do it? I think it's going to be a fun if whether it's a competition or whether it's a combination, it's going to be a fun situation there.
My question for Coleman's probably unanswerable at this point, but my question for Coleman is, will the injury gods be kind to them through this non-district portion of their season? Not only are they playing some good teams, they're playing a couple of really physical teams, and you want to get out of that non-district portion healthy to be ready for district. You're talking about Mason and Cisco and Collinsville that are in there. Eastland's in the mix also. These are teams that are going to bring it, especially Mason and Cisco physically. So will they can they avoid the medical tent before going into district? That's going to be important. And that's a matter of luck.
Yeah, it really is. And my last question is at least somewhat related to that because it's depth related, and that's on both lines. This is going to be a young line group. It's going to be a not a terribly deep line group. So my question is, can Coleman hold up on the lines well enough to allow their skill talent to really show what they've got? This is a team that does have some serious skill talent. You look at some of the kids and some of the things that they've done over the years, and they've got some kids who can do some stuff with the football in their hands. But you're going to have to block for them. You're going to have to create holes for them in the run game. You're going to have to create time for those quarterbacks in the pass game. So, with that in mind, can this young line group can it hold up against the rigors of not only a full season, a tough season? You mentioned that non-district schedule. It's a tough non-district schedule, and then you go right into a really tough district as well. So, I think that's going to be a big question on both lines. How will this group hold up? It's going to be some young kids and some inexperienced kids and some big roles.
They're going to have to grow up in a hurry.
Mhm.
All right. With that, we're going to take a closer look at this Coleman schedule, which is a challenging lineup of teams. But first, we want to thank some of our sponsors, beginning with For the Love of the Game Broadcasting and our old friend Terry Slavens, owner of K-Lakes 93.5 FM out of Brackenridge, 97.7 FM KATX out of Eastland, Classic Country AM 1330 out of Graham, 94.7 FM KWKQ out of Graham, KROO 1430 AM out of Breck, and KWBY 98.5 FM out of Ranger. That is for the love of the game broadcasting. Also, Rob Durham, sales consultant at Bayer Chevrolet Buick Cadillac up in Breckenridge. If you're in the market for a new vehicle or a used vehicle, call Rob. He's one of the nicest guys you'll ever want to meet. Give him a shout at 254 559 2266. That's Rob Durham up at Bayer Chevrolet Buick Cadillac in Breckenridge. And finally, Cavalry Resources and Construction, located up in Breckenridge, serving the entire big country, offering custom standing seam roofing made on location and all commercial roofing applications. Give Kobe Walker a shout at 254 246 5546. That is Cavalry Resources and Construction in Breckenridge. All right, and with that, it's about time to take a look, a closer look, that is, at this Coleman schedule for 2025, which indeed is a challenging lineup. Non-district first, they'll be facing Eastland at home on August the 29th, on the road at Clifton on September 5th, a home date with the Mason Punchers on September 12th, and that's going to be a challenge right there. They'll travel to Cisco to face an improved Lobo team on the 19th, and then they will face Collinsville, another rapidly improving program, a solid program, playoff team, on the 26th. After that, they will have an open date, and then they jump into district.
And they jump into district with two toughies right off the bat. At home against Hamilton on October 10th, at De Leon on October 17th, and then they come home to face Heiko on the 24th of October, stay in Coleman to face Ballinger on October 31st, and then they wrap up their district schedule at Bangs on November 7th. So we've been talking about this district. It's a tough one. There are not any gimmies in this district, and the same will ring true for Coleman. It'll be a fun run through that league.
All right. And with that, Dan, game of the year, as you see it for Coleman, what are the game? If Coleman wants to win a district championship, what do you see as the
Yeah.
most important game?
I think if I'm looking at that schedule, and this is if Coleman is competing at the top of that district, I think those first two games are going to tell us a whole lot. This is a Hamilton team last year that took a massive step forward, had a fantastic year, went and won the region before losing to Stanford in the semifinals. So that Hamilton game at home is going to be a toughie on October 10th, and then you've turned around and play a De Leon team that's just been getting better over the years as well. That's a really so those two games. If you're going to compete for a district championship, we're going to find out those first two how good you are, and then after that, you're playing teams that are fighting for playoff spots and not necessarily for a title, most likely. So, if I'm Coleman, I'm circling those first two. Those are the two that will determine the ceiling for this team, in my opinion.
I agree that those first two are the most important, but I'll go with Hamilton as its game of the year. If they can get off to a good start against the Hamilton team at home, and it's good for Coleman that that game is at home. That's gonna give them a leg up on the competition. Then on the road at De Leon, of course, is going to be difficult.
Yeah.
Um, but you don't want to open up if you want to win the district championship. You want to lose a home game to Hamilton there. So that's going to be important right off the bat.
Yeah, and the one thing to remember about this schedule, and we saw this last year. Coleman went into the playoffs at 3-7, won a playoff game. This is a schedule that the record doesn't necessarily. It will not tell you at the end of this schedule most likely how good this Coleman team actually is because they could lose a handful of those non-district games and still end up being a really good team by the time that the playoffs roll around. So we saw that with them last year. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
this is a tough schedule top to bottom. It's gonna be fun to see how they navigate it.
I wouldn't be surprised with a slow start at all with that
No.
schedule, But if they can stay healthy, they'll go in battle hardened and
Mm.
be ready for this district, no doubt about it. But that schedule.
Yep.
All right, and with that, it's about time to wrap up this edition of the Countdown to Two-A-Days series, the Coleman Bluecats. But before we do that, we want to remind you folks that August 20th is the big day here at BigCountryPreps.com. That's the day that we release our annual preseason preview with team previews of all 11-man teams in the Big Country area. We'll have columns, we'll have stats, we'll have predictions, we'll have player features, and a whole bunch of them. More than 40 player features featuring kids from around the area. It's a ton of material. The most in-depth look at big country football by any media source, either in the big country or across the state for that matter.
Yeah. In the meantime, we appreciate you taking a look at this episode of our Countdown to Two-A-Day series, and make sure you return tomorrow when we feature the De Leon Bearcats here at BigCountryPreps.com.